Hey guys, been asked to create a training video for creating some exam security for online exams. So in this first video, I'm going to talk about varying your exam questions. So I'm going to assume that everyone knows how to create an exam. Basically, to create an exam, you simply go up here to assessments and click on test, and you can create an exam or a test using that method. Now I've created a sample test for training here, so I'm going to go ahead and go in here and just click on edit the test so you can see the different question types that I've used here, and also I'll be able to show you how to select them. I went ahead and named each question so you would know what we have here. The first question type is one of my favorites. It's called the calculated formula. And so basically what I've done here is I've asked students to find the slope of the given graph at x value. And notice here I've given them a function. You can't see the function because the values a and c will be determined once they take the test. Now you can see that they'll calculate the formula basically by getting the slope by using the derivative, and here's the derivative formula that I entered for that. So let me go in here and edit this question so you can see what I did. I entered the question, and then I entered the formula to solve the question, and then I click next. And basically in this type of question, for whatever variables you use, you can choose how many different answer sets you want. I chose 3, and so for A, for the first answer set, I chose A to be 5 and C to be 3, so that would be 5x cubed, and I told it to find the slope at -3. And the next one would be 3x to the 4th, and I told it to evaluate the slope at -2, and the other one would be 4x cubed, and I told it to evaluate the slope at -4. So I'm going to cancel that, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like to the students. Okay, so now you can see this is question 1, and this is what the students would see. So one student would see the function as 5x cubed, the other student would see the other functions maybe as 4x squared or 3x to the 4th or whatever I entered. So that's what the question looks like in the actual test. So that's calculated formula example. Next question type is called calculated numeric, and on this one your answer has to be a number, and it can be a number in decimal form. Of course you can't use fractions or anything like pi or e or anything like that, but you can tell the students, if it's a decimal, you can tell the students to round it to the nearest decimal. So here I've given them a function and asked them to identify the smallest critical number, and so you can see the answer for this one would be 2, so I had to enter the answer, which is 2. Okay, so that's that one, and this one I don't need to show you because it's pretty much is going to show up just like this on the student's test page. Next question type is the multiple choice sample, and in these samples you're probably most familiar with this type. So here I've got 5 responses for the product rule, and what I like to do on this one, rather than just have a problem and then an answer, I like to provide a set of steps for students so that students can show me the set of steps that are required to solve a problem. So as you can see here, I'm asking them to demonstrate the product rule for finding the derivative of this function. And by the way, I probably should have showed you this earlier, but you can go up here and where it says create question and choose the different question type you want to add to the test. Also, if you've got a test created, you can click on this plus button and choose the different question types wherever you want to add the question. Okay, so let's go to the next question type. The next question type is multiple answer. And so with multiple answers, there can be more than one answer for a problem. So here I've given the students a function and I've asked them to identify each value that is a critical number. And you can see that even though there's, I think there's 6 possible responses here, there's only 2 correct answers. So the students have to identify the correct answer that represents a critical number. Now, one thing you need to be careful of on these questions is when you set it up, you want to make sure that you allow partial credit so that they'll get credit for the ones they get correct. And also, you'd think this would be inherent, but you have to do negative score for incorrect answers. Otherwise, it won't count it wrong if they click one of the incorrect answers. And I don't do this one, negative overall score, because I don't want a student to have a negative score on a question. So the lowest value they can get is 0 on it. And then, of course, you always want questions in random order when you're creating these. You also have to do this on other types of questions like matching, and I think there might be one or two others. So I'm not going to cover that on the others just to save time. Okay, here we have a matching question. So I've given the students 4 functions here, and they are to match each function with the x value points of inflection. So they have to take each function and find the points of inflection, and I'm only asking them to match it up with the x values of the points of inflection. So you can see I've given more responses than are necessary, so actually there's going to be 2 left over here. And actually, if I wanted to, I could have 2 of these responses have the same answer. So, you know, possibly a student might not even know that there's 2 left over because number A and B could have the same answer, possibly. So you could have more than 2 answers left over. But you can make those decisions when you're doing the settings, when you're setting up the question. So that's your matching sample. The next sample is called the jumbled sentence. And in the jumbled sentence, you can have multiple questions. And basically what will happen is when the student encounters this in an exam, there'll be a drop-down box right here. And they'll be able to click on that drop-down box and choose one of these drop-down list of answers. So when you set it up, you have to choose how many drop-down answers you want. And notice I've got only 3 questions here, but I have like 9 different drop-down answers. So, you know, that increases the difficulty a little bit. Next question really covers a couple questions. There's one where you can choose that's fill in the blank, and then there's one that you can choose that says fill in multiple blanks. One of the things you have to be aware of here is students must spell correctly, and you have to be careful on uppercase and lowercase letters. Now, you can offer more than one answer. So when you do this problem, let me go next here. You can tell it to exactly match it or match a pattern, whatever that means, and you can click on case sensitive. So since I'm not making it case sensitive, they could use capitals even though I told them not to here. And by the way, if you wanted to give a multiple answers here that would work, you could put in as many answers as you want here, you know, if you're concerned about spelling or anything like that. Next question is just a simple true-false question. So I just gave them the derivative of tangent x is secant x, and obviously that's false. But you know, that might be something you want to use if you have just a minor point you want to make. You can use a true-false question. You can also make it yes-no as well as true-false. There's a question, an ordering question, where you can give a bunch of steps to solve a problem. and then the students have to put the steps in the proper order. I'll show you this one when I get to the at the end. I'll go back and look at the test and show you the question so you can see this one a little bit better. The last two questions are similar. Well, actually, the short answer sample and the essay sample are similar. So you could create a question like here I said, in your own words, describe how you identify points of inflection for a function. And so if you wanted to, you could have students give you a description for something or write an essay about something. But one thing you have to be careful of, this is usually just for typing, not for mathematical symbols. But one thing you might be aware of here is that you'll have to grade this. It won't automatically grade it, so you'll have to grade it yourself. And then the last example, if you want students to provide work, there's a file response type question where the students can upload a file. So here, as I said, perform, find the critical numbers and identify all relative extrema points for this function. And then the students do that on a sheet of paper, and then they upload it here. So let me go ahead and just show you what all these questions look like in the actual test. And by the way, I made this one extra credit just to show you that you could make a question an extra credit question. So now I'm going to click on the test as if the student's taking the test and show you what the questions look like. There would be the calculated formula, so the student would have to calculate, enter a number. Here the student would have to enter the number, what we said earlier for that one. Here, of course, the student just chooses the right answer here. And then for this one, the students would choose, I think these two are the right answers, so they would choose those two. And again, make sure you put in the partial credit settings, otherwise it won't grade it the way you want it to. And then here the students can match this function with the points of inflection. So I don't know what the answer is, but let's just say that one's B, and this one's A, and this one's C, and so forth. And that one's D. So, and then the jumbled sentence, here's, the students would choose the first derivative of that function for there, and then they would choose the second derivative from this list here, and they would choose the average function from here. And then here, this is where they have to be careful. So they must use the general power rule for that one. So they have to type that in. And then here, they would type in the word product. And obviously you could do more than 2 questions there. And then here the student would just click on true or false. And then here, what they would have to do here is they would find the first step, which would actually be the derivative, finding the derivative here. So they would put that at step 1. And then they would do the next step, which would be, I believe I would have that as setting the derivative equal to 0, which is right here. That would be step 2, and so forth. And then they would just put the steps in order for whatever I asked here, for finding the relative extrema for that function. So anyway, they just do the rest. Here, this is where the short answer question, where they type in their answer. And then here on this last one, the student would, browse my computer and then locate the file, where they save that, the document that they did the answer on. And obviously they'd have to save it as some sort of file that can be uploaded, and then they just browse their computer and upload that file. And then of course they just save and submit. So I wanted to share this with you so you could see that one way to create some variety in Blackboard was to use these different type of test questions. Now I don't know, but I assume there's similar options you have in other programs like MyMathLab or WebAssign. But this video is only about creating questions using the Blackboard testing options. Thank you. I'll do another video to go along with this on settings. Good day.